Thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and first start with, tell us a little bit about your priorities moving forward.
Yeah, so it's kind of a two-phase approach. First phase was once we became speaker is to try to do a job of putting people in spots to be successful. So that's why we redid the committee system and put in some new chairmen, moved some people around on committees, added people to various committees. So that was one. The other thing is try to do a better job of making sure everybody is on the same page and we're moving forward and trying to put down some of the fires and really put us towards the path of where we can work together to move Tennessee forward.
Speaking of putting out some of the fires, you're coming in after obviously a scandal involving former Speaker Speaker Cassida, How do you plan, or what plans do you have to kind of gain voters' trust again and constituents' trust after that? Because a lot of people are saying that Nashville is just not operating correctly.
Well, I mean, I think that they're not looking long-term what's been happening for the last 9 years. Nashville's been working very well as well as the state of Tennessee with Governor Haslam and Governor Lee and with the Republican General Assembly. What I would say a lot of times is you can't have one person or a small group of people think that that's the way it is all across the board. You don't do that in other occupations. If you have one or two bad actors, sometimes it's not a representation of the full body. So what I would say is if you look at their elected officials locally, they're all very good people, and the people who are in Nashville trying to serve, they are doing the right thing.
What will people notice, or will they notice any major changes now with your leadership?
Well, I mean, we'll see. I think I'm somewhere between what Glenn was and what Beth were as speakers, and I think what you'll see is allowing people to have a voice, allowing people to be heard, putting them in spots where they can be successful and represent their district successfully. I think that's the key. And then allowing us to continue to have a dialogue, an open dialogue with one another as we move forward. Whether or not we agree on the issues or not, sometimes we agree on where we want to get, and the pathway's a little different. So trying to take that into account and move us in the direction that we really want to go.
Let's talk a little bit about David Byrd, possibly another controversy there in the Nashville area. He's announced he will not be seeking re-election. Is that enough in your opinion?
Well, we're waiting on the AG's opinion to come back. You know, this is a very delicate situation and it's a complex situation, and there's no precedent for what some people are asking us to do. So we thought we would err on the side of abundance of caution and ask the AG if we had the authority, if we could go down this road, and if we could, what does that look like? They're in their process of doing their research and looking at case law and everything else all around the nation as well as in Tennessee. So we're waiting for their opinion, for them to tell us what direction we can go or what direction we should not go.
Do you feel like enough is being done to respond to these claims at this point?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's allegations made from 30 years ago, which makes it very difficult. There was no investigation done at the time. It's very hard to go back and investigate something from that far ago. So it's just one of these things where before we start trying to go down that road, we need to make sure that we have the capability of going down that road.
All right, let's shift gears and talk a little bit about, you were recently at odds with Nashville's mayor over his call for overturning Tennessee's sanctuary cities law. What should Tennessee be doing when it comes to immigration, do you think?
Well, that's a good question. You know, I think we passed a bill that said that Tennessee cities can't be sanctuary cities. We see what's happening in San Francisco. We don't want Nashville becoming the new San Francisco. We sure don't want that happening in our state. We want people who will come in legally. That's perfectly fine. There's a lot of great Tennesseans who are now American citizens who are living in the state who've come in legally. And so all we really said to Mayor Briley at the time, we're looking forward to working with new Mayor John Cooper, is follow the law. We passed the law, and you don't get a right to choose which ones you want and don't want to follow. So just follow the rule of law.
Let's also talk about a federal judge has for now blocked the state's new law on voter registration drives. So do you feel those large-scale voter registration efforts were a problem to begin with?
Well, I mean, there were some. You know, we had an issue this past election in Shelby County in Memphis where they dropped off thousands of new vote registration forms the day before the deadline or hours before the deadline. Secretary of State's office really could not handle it, and then that created a problem on election day. So really what this was trying to do is do a better job of managing that to where if people register, they can get to where they can vote on election day without doing a provisional ballot. So that's part of it. The second part is people were being paid to do this, and there's a lot of fraud in those applications process. So it's a way not to limit who could register to vote, but really have a process to where if you truly want to register to vote, then you can.
We're seeing here in East Tennessee almost a lack of interest in elections. We just had a recent primary, relatively low turnout. How do we get more people involved with the legislative process and getting out to vote?
Well, I mean, I think part of it sometimes is when you held the elections. There was a TASA report that was released this week. I had the bill few years ago that we turned it over to the task, or for them to look at if you mirror the city and the county and the federal and state elections, if you would increase voter participation. It looked like it would increase voter participation. They talked a little bit about ballot fatigue and maybe not. But what I would say is if it coincided with other elections, you would see a higher turnout. When in my community, when you have the property assessor's race, it's a very low turnout if it's the only thing on the ballot. So I think a little bit of it is trying to mirror the election schedules together.
Let's talk a little bit about healthcare. Obviously a huge concern all throughout East Tennessee and really the entire country right now. What can we do at the state level, if anything, to kind of help Tennesseans?
Well, I mean, if you look at it, healthcare is the one commodity where you can't shop. Like, you don't know what the price is. You don't know, it's really hard to gauge what the quality is. And so really at the essence of it, if you really want to bring down pricing in healthcare, then the consumers need to know what the pricing is. Just like when they go buy a car or a washer and dryer, here's the cost, here's what the outcomes are, here's what the quality is, and then the consumer can make that decision themselves. Until we can get to that place where consumers have the ability to make those decisions, it's very hard to control the cost.
What do you say to Tennesseans who say someone needs to do something? I do not have access to good health care right now and someone has to listen to me. Is there a Band-Aid for the problem?
Well, I mean, I think there is. You know, the 10-Care Block Grant is one opportunity to give us more control where maybe we can provide more additional health coverage out there or enhance services already and help providers as well. So that's one answer to that. I know some people are wanting to do expansion. You know, there's talk that expansion would keep hospitals from closing or realigning. That's not the case. It's a much complicated issue than that. What I will say is, as we're looking through this, is what we have is a system where the insurance company is the one who dominates everything. They're the ones who are telling the providers what to do. They're the ones who are making it so complex you can't shop the price. And people want accessible, affordable, quality health care, and we're all on the same page. It's about how do you get to that point. But part of it is you can't have affordable health care if the consumer doesn't know how much something costs. That's fundamental to any kind of free market approach.
Let's talk about education here in our state. Unfortunately, for the last 3 years, kind of a black eye on Tennessee with the TN-ready testing. Moving forward, what do you hope to see happen, and is there a way to kind of govern that a little bit more?
Well, I mean, I think we had a better shot this year. There weren't any problems. You know, we had some bandwidth, and we had an out-of-state firm that was trying to do it from out of state, and they weren't here during the state. The new commissioner kind of put all that in, fixed it to a certain degree. It was a very good year as far as the testing. We didn't have the problems like we did. I think it looks like they're going to try to move paper testing for this coming year in an effort to get us to the next point. So it looks like we're kind of on the path of getting this to where we need it to be successful.
All right, one last big topic here, obviously gun control. In light of the recent mass shootings all throughout our country, and then of course school security as a whole right now, what would you like to see Tennessee schools do? Do you think that every school should be mandated to have an SRO?
I don't know if it needs to be mandated. What you do is give them the resources to let them put in place, and I think that's what Governor Haslam did at the end of his term. That's what we hope to continue to do. Allow them to go under that safety study and really see what would benefit their schools, whether it's helping them lock it down at first with the way they come into the schools, whether it's an SRO officer, whether it's metal detectors. Let that be the school's decision on how they think they should best be able to handle the student population. As far as gun control as a whole, I think you really have to look at mental health and substance abuse and behavioral health issues and really try to tackle. We haven't done a very good job with the mental health side, and we need to do a better job on that.
All right, I said last question, but I kind of lied. Let me ask you one more. Moving forward, what is your #1 priority here throughout the rest of this year?
Well, throughout the rest of this year is one, just making sure that we're prepared to go in January and be in a spot to be successful. We're going around meeting with a lot of community leaders, meeting with elected officials locally, as well as with city elected officials, really trying to get a better perspective of where we are, where we want to go, and what we want to do. Tennessee's a great state. We've had great success over the last 9 years. Unemployment's down, incomes are up. Our budget's a phenomenal budget. We're doing great things in the state of Tennessee, and we just need to continue to do the message, continue to do what we're doing, and Tennessee will be successful.
All right, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.